How do we target this? All right, target houses on 20 plus acres, send them a letter. I'm interested in buying some of your land. I can survey it, do all that. It is very, very successful because it sounds good. Like, it is an enticing offer to these sellers.
Everyone in this industry talks about competition. If someone's getting mailed and called and text all over and over again about their 100 acres to buy their 100 acres, what happens when the first person in the door comes and says, hey, I want to buy 5 acres? That's different. That's unique. You're standing out and you're providing value that no one else provided there.
This is what we talk about with land investing. That's why we call it our land investing online. There's just so many different avenues that you can go with land in general. And this is one that, I mean, you can do a deal, 2 deals a month and make $500,000.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Real Estate Investing Podcast. Today's topic, we're talking about survey hacking. This is our second episode we've done on survey hacking. Last time, I don't know if we had a name for it, or maybe we came up with a name on the spot. But as always, guys, I'm your host, Dan Rapke, joined again by my brother and business partner, Ron Apke. Ron, welcome.
Yeah, happy to be here. Happy to talk about this topic for the second time. It's I feel like it's grown a little bit in our community since we've started talking about it. It just makes sense. It's just a strategy that makes sense in this business in a way that you can provide a ton of value for sellers. So excited to get into it.
Yeah, and there's multiple ways. For those who don't know what survey hacking is, essentially, we can kind of hop right into the definition of what it is. It's where essentially you're sending letters to people who own houses or just big parts of land, but you're not offering to buy the whole thing. Obviously, so if a house is on a property and it's 50 acres, you're not offering to buy all 50 acres. You're offering to buy a percentage of their land. Maybe you want to subdivide 5 to 20 acres off of that. And vice versa. If it's just land, same philosophy happens. They have 100 acres, right? Maybe you target 100 plus acres. They have 100 acres and you want 20 acres off of it, or 5 acres or 10 acres. It's the same philosophy as really trying to, you're attacking and buying part of their property, not the whole thing. So it's easier for someone to let go, hey, here's 5 acres. Yeah, I need that $40,000 right now.
Yeah, I mean, owning 50 acres is a ton of maintenance if they want to keep it like up and keep it looking. It matters the part of the country. Some are just trees, but if it's needs to be mowed or something like that, it's a ton of maintenance. And you have people who, they might want 3-4 acres. They don't know what to do. They don't know the plan for it. So you make an offer to them like, listen, I'll take the 47 acres. I'll leave you 3 acres or whatever it is. You want to be flexible with what you can do for them.
Right.
And they still keep their house. They keep the 3 acres of whatever they want to do with it. And then you have the 47 acres or the remaining acres.
Yeah. And that's what I kind of want to get into is targeting these. So you split it up into land and then you split up the land plus houses, right?
Yeah.
How would you go about in general just coming up with a game plan?
For me, I like targeting. I think targeting the houses part is better. So land plus houses together. So you're getting residences. I mean, the list isn't too targeted, honestly. It's just primary residences, people who own 20 plus acres, you say. And really, when you're targeting, I don't think you really need to look for road frontage. They have road frontage if they have a house on it. Typically, if it's 20 acres, it's not. Maybe you just don't have under 200 feet of road frontage or something like that. So you have some room for the end buyer to get back to the parcel that you split off. Mm-hmm. But I think keeping it pretty broad when you're targeting the house part, I think keeping it pretty broad, 20 plus acres with a house on it, targeting them, offering them. You want to be flexible. You're not just, I'm going to buy 90% of your land.
We'll get into that, yeah.
You want to be flexible with your offer for sure.
And that's the thing. I think with something like this, and a lot of people are getting deals doing this now, but I feel like it's one of those things where the more land they have, the more likely they are to sell. It's like giving away 1% of your land versus 75 or 100%. Giving away 2% of someone's land for them to be able to chop that off, it's 2% instead of 50. If they have 10 acres and you ask them to buy 5, that's 50% of their land, Mm-hmm. So it's going to be a little bit more difficult for them to split off half of their land rather than if they have 1,000 acres splitting off 20.
Yeah.
And then what is that, 5%?
Yeah, if you get big parcels, you can do so much with this. I think about it more so from like we're opening a whole new aspect of potential sellers because they own houses and we're not making them move. That's the biggest thing, I think. Like some people are in a financial situation, they own a huge asset. Like that land plus house is a huge asset, but they don't want to go move somewhere else. So you're giving them financial, obviously, you're giving them money to stay in their house, keep their X acres, and then I'm going to take this and get you a good amount of money.
And you talk about the competition side too. I mean, yes, you can get them their money and everything. And, if someone needs to, they own a house on 100 acres, they have some serious expenses that come off. They're not going to sell their house first. They're going to sell their assets under it. But the problem is in today's era, the house and the land are connected to one mortgage or one property, right? But if you go to them with that solution, hey, I can subdivide 20 acres off and give you $100,000, whatever the property's worth, that is a ton of money to them. A lot of times those people still, like, they've owned that house a long time, whatever it is, or then they just need the money for whatever reason, and you're just finding a way to split their asset off essentially for them.
Yeah, it's you're essentially improving, like, the skill is having a surveyor being able to line up everything with closing. So there is like a skill opposed to just buying the entire asset and reselling it. So there is more technicalities that go into it. Some of them won't know where to start if they want to do that themselves. Like, a seller might think, I'm just going to do this myself. Like, they don't know where to start a lot of times with that, talking to the county, getting it approved if it needs to be, everything like that. So there's a lot more that goes into it besides just buying and reselling.
I agree. And I'm curious to see the stats on, because I don't want people to hear this episode and be like, oh, I got to go target houses now and ask for part of their land. That's part of this. I want you to target big pieces of land and ask for part of their land instead of whole as well. And you'll get a better response rate and be able to buy a lot of properties. And you also get people who call back and just say, oh, I want to sell all of it.
Yep.
And it opens up the door for that. But the thing is, everyone in this industry talks about competition, right? So let's think about that for a little bit. If someone's getting mailed and called and text all over and over again about their 100 acres to buy their 100 acres, what happens when the first person in the door comes and says, hey, I want to buy 5 acres?
Yep.
That's different. That's unique. You're standing out and you're providing value that no one else provided there.
100%. I think you're going to, there's so many more interested sellers if you can say, whatever it is on the offer, but if you're just open up so many more potential sellers if you're doing it for houses or you're doing it for land, because a lot of people want to keep, if they have 50 acres and you're buying 10 of it, it doesn't affect them that much. If they use it a couple of times a year for rec land or anything, versus you're trying to buy all their 50 acres, they don't have that land anymore. It's gone. But if you can get them X dollars for 10 of the acres, it is very, very enticing.
Think of that. Think of if you got an offer for that on your property.
Yeah.
Say we had 100 acres. Just think of getting that offer for 10 of them.
Yep.
And you're like, that's subdividing for you. That's why it's called survey hacking. You're reverse engineering it. People want to subdivide their land to make money, but they just don't know the process or how to.
And their asset, they remain, for that example, you take 10 acres of the 50 acres, their asset price doesn't go down that much. The difference between 50 and 40 acres is not that much. You're going to make, if they went and sold the 40 acres right after you bought the 10 acres, they're going to make more money.
That's what I tell them. You think 5 acres off your 100, you're going to sell 150 acres and 145 acres at the same exact price.
It's the same thing, except you just get that asset. So, yeah, I mean, there's so many different ways to go about this. I don't know who should be going for this right now. There's a little more intricacies. You got to line things up, I think, with surveyor, getting earnest money down. You need to get earnest money down.
Survey laws. You got to make sure you can do it.
Restrictions, everything like that. So there is a little more that goes in. You definitely want to do some due diligence on the county. But who do you think this strategy, is it just we talk a lot about pieces of strategies,
people did this accidentally too.
100%.
That's how it really came up, is we were accidentally
from other data sources. Now there's not houses on their data sources.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's actually true. Yeah. So what Ron's saying there, that was a good point. You're saying that, from certain data points or certain data providers, people were sending mail to houses, not knowing there's a house on it, just because they're relying on county provided data. With the land portal, we remove all that because we use AI and machine learning to analyze the houses and make sure you're not sending it there. But before, what was happening, 10, 20% of your mail was going to houses and you didn't even know it. So these people with houses are like, yeah, I own 20 acres, but I got a house on it. You want 10 acres. Mm-hmm. And that's essentially how, I think Shelby ran into a deal like that. Yep. One of our first deals, a lot of people did. And now we started preaching survey hacking because the competition, the profit, and the value you're bringing the sellers, the main thing. And I think this all just kind of lines up with our proposition.
Yeah, to be it's not something we made up. We coined the term survey hacking, but it's it was deals that people were running into. This
no
makes
one else
a lot of sense.
We made it up from a targeting aspect.
Yeah, how do we target this? That was kind of how do you repeat this situation? For subdividing, how do you make subdividing more predictable? You get road frontage information, you have more information on the front end, just like this. How is this repeatable? How do we actually target this? All right, target houses on 20 plus acres, send them a letter. I'm interested in buying some of your land on your, I can survey, do all that. So it's just about the strategy, I think. And it is very, very successful because it sounds good. Like it is an enticing offer to these sellers.
I agree. And especially like you can get into the weeds. Let's talk about the offer and how to target, because I'm curious to see if you targeted people, house value, things like that as well. You're targeting mobile homes, mobile homes that have 50 plus acres. Are those going to be more likely than a $1.8 million house on there?
I would think so. I think the number one thing when you're like running into this is people are going to ask like, what are you doing with the land? Because you're
their neighbors.
Exactly. That's going to be their neighbor.
But you can get flexible with where you split it off too. It's like, what land don't
you can draw
you
them
want?
up some options. Yeah, draw them up some options. Like, here's what I want this far from your house. I think this works the best. That's the flexibility of what you can do with it. You can be flexible with the amount of acres you subdivide off, the location of the acres, the amount of money, obviously, the amount, all that different stuff. But as far as targeting, I don't know who would be the most likely. I think people who aren't using their land, like I think a lot of people inherited or they're living on a house and they're like, what am I doing with this 50 acres? And they get $100,000 offer for 12 of the acres or something like that. And like, it sounds really, really good. Like having an extra $100,000 and keeping 30 acres. I just think it's a good offer for a lot of different type of people.
I don't think you want to get too granular with who you're targeting in terms of the person that owns it or the house. I would start pretty broad and then see how you go and see the feedback and go from there. Let's talk about the offer letter now. So we talked about what it is, why it works, the value we're bringing, the different ways, targeting land, houses, all that. Now let's talk about the offer letter. Is it going to be, are you going to offer a percentage of the land that they own? Are you going to keep it pretty open, neutral letter type of like, I want to subdivide off 2 to 20 of your acres on your 50-acre lot. If you're interested in selling any of your, acres, I can pay for the subdivision or the survey and all that. Like, how would you target that?
I think you want to be pretty neutral about it, because you want to get, at first, like maybe you see some things, or maybe like certain areas, like I want 5-acre parcels. Like I want 5-acre parcels. It's going to make so much sense. There can be situations. I think you get a lot more granular with some things, but I think overall doing it neutral. And I think just letting them know, because it's going to be confusing. Like I think from a seller's perspective, it's going to be confusing. So I think you just kind of like, here are the steps that we do. 1, we talk about how much land you want to part with of your X acres. 2, we come up with a price that makes sense for us and you. 3, we're going to line up a survey. All this is going to be done by us. And then we'll close and you'll get your money that we agreed on in X 3-4 weeks, whatever it is. You want good relationships with surveyors. But I think just laying out like the steps that it is for them, you need to be pretty clear. You can't have it confusing, not too land focused, but it just needs to make sense. Like step 1, step 2, step 3, this is what it looks like. We'll get you money in 4 weeks.
Yeah. So like opening a line, hey, Damien.
I think it's similar. I see you have a house on 50 acres in X County, Ohio. What we do is we offer to buy some of your land off of that property, essentially. I think something like that is going to be like just very black and white, I think is going to work.
Interesting. Yeah, I agree with you. And you want to have, if you guys are forming this offer letter, have your significant other, someone else in the industry read through it and make sure they can understand it. Have
someone outside.
Some of the dumbest friends you have read it and make sure they can. I'm just kidding about that. But just make sure anyone can understand it, because if they can't, the person who owns the land isn't going to be able to. And this can get kind of confusing, and they've never seen something like this before. So I like what you hit on, being very, very clear. Step 1, 2, 3. I saw you own 50 acres in blank county, Ohio. I'm interested in buying some of your, or subdividing off part of your land. Whatever. You could even do like, I'm interested in buying 2 to 20 of the acres from that.
Yeah.
Curious to see how it will work. These fall naturally in people's lap, targeting these, and that's a sign that it's going to work really well. That's always been a sign. And now there's people targeting it and getting them deals back. But when you have a niche falling in your lap like that, that's how we came up with this. Like you said, it's just falling in your lap, and you start to get precise with how you're targeting and your response rate, and everything really goes up from there.
Yeah. I mean, we ran into this from our students, good land investors who just were creative with situations that came about. Someone calling them back with a house on their land, and not just be like, oh, not another house on the land or whatever this data provide, whatever it is. Instead, they found the opportunity. Like the best land investors look for opportunities,
right?
And that's what they did, and that's how some of these deals, you can get such a good deal. You can buy 5 acres for 30% of market value when this is an improvement. They're keeping their 40 acres, whatever the amount is, and you can get such a good deal. You can 3x your money on this.
I wonder if you just targeted 20 acres and just say, I'm interested in buying 5 of them.
Yeah.
I wonder how that would work.
It would. I think it would be
like
good. That's what I was curious about. Like, look for the type of land that sells the best: 5 acres, 7 acres, 10 acres, whatever it is, and then do that. But I think you are putting your potential margin in a box a little bit.
You are, but you could do like 5 acres plus minus sign.
Yeah.
You know, one of those, like plus/minus.
But then if you're doing a certain amount, then you can get an offer price on there. That's the thing.
Yeah, we typically offer $25,000 for 5 acres. The next steps are give us a call. We can discuss it. We can come up with the amount of acreage you want to survey off and sell, and then we can negotiate a price, close the deal. You'll have your money within X amount of time.
Yeah, for sure. You probably, I think with something like this, because you are going to get a survey, I think another value is, Dan, now that I think about it, is one, you can get a survey of their house too. So they have an up-to-date because they're going to have an up-to-date survey now. So it'll be nice that they have a brand new survey for their house area as well. But what I was thinking is you probably need a price per acre determined before the survey, opposed to having a set price, because it's going to be hard for them to get exactly the right acres.
That's what I mean.
Yeah. So definitely have a price per acre agreed upon.
You mean on the offer letter or talking? I
just mean when you talk, like when you're getting under contract, like, because the surveyor's not going to be able to pull exactly 5 acres typically. So it could be 5.21, 5.01. You know what I'm saying? So they are getting compensated for the amount of land you actually get.
Yeah, it's plus or minus a little bit. Typically, they're going to be close if they're good surveyors, though.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly. Yeah, they'll be within a tenth, I think, of an acre.
And before you do this, you want to call the counties. So you do your market selection, you go through all that. You want to call the counties and just understand what the regulations are for surveying off. You can tell them what you're doing. Just give them break. Is there any restrictions? What are the 3 questions we ask? How small can you survey?
Yeah.
Subdivide. Is there a minimum amount? Is there a minimum amount? How much road frontage you need? And are there any restrictions created from that?
Yeah, just find out you want minor subdivide. Major subdivisions are going to need approval typically, a lot more paperwork, all that crap. Minor subdivide, you're just going to need a survey essentially. You'll need a plat or a survey. Some counties you don't even need a survey, but I would always get a survey for this example, so you have that on the back end when you're selling. But I mean, guys, this is what we talk about with land investing. That's why we call it our land investing online. There's just so many different avenues that you can go with this.
This is a big one.
With land in general. And this is one that, I mean, you can do a deal, 2 deals a month and make $500,000 easy.
Oh, yeah. Get really precise with what land you're targeting, I think.
Marketing's cheap, too.
Because why?
I mean, I just think I think you're going to be more effective with marketing. It's going to be more sniper.
It's a more sniper approach, but you think you're going to have better response rates and...
I think your ROI is going to be better per letter.
I agree, 100%.
Yeah.
Anytime you get good at a niche, though, typically that's what we see.
For sure. And this isn't something like you should be doing necessarily on your first deal. If you run into one on your first deal, great, like go for it. But I don't think it's necessarily your first, second, third deal maybe. But this is a niche that you can put some of time, effort into.
Test things
I was talking with Michael last week. I just like he was working on subdividing calculations and stuff like that with offer prices, and like just putting some time into the front end to figure out what is going to work. Like you said, like looking over the letter. Letter's very important for this. What are they going to see when they first open that letter? How are you going to talk to them when they first open that letter? So all these stuff, the front end work is so important. Then you can create almost a playbook for what works. And we're not teaching this stuff. We don't teach this stuff. We're just talking about it. So it's not like you might be doing something completely different than someone else. Yeah. And that's the beauty in it.
Yeah, exactly. And I want to talk real quick, we can touch before we wrap this up, is building a list, because now you have a road frontage filter in the land port, and you guys can target specific amounts of road frontage, just like we do for any subdividing typically. And if you're going after 20 plus acres or 40 plus acres for this, you're probably going to want to use that, because you don't want to subdivide off someone's with a flag shaped lot where it's all awkward, and then you got to share driveways and all this stuff going up it. I think you use that here.
You think so? I don't think you need to be too small though.
No, but like
too big.
Like 1,000 feet.
I think 1,000's too much.
For 20 plus acres?
Yeah, I mean, you can get creative though. I imagine like a 500-foot road frontage, like a house is only 80 feet wide or something like that. And you can make a flag for
What about 500?
Yeah, that's what I was kind of thinking. I was thinking 500 for like 20 acres plus.
500 is a good amount.
I don't want you putting yourself in too much of a bucket, but I also don't want you sending mail to deals that can't happen.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Well, those are going to come back though. But yeah, I'd be curious if you guys are listening and
You can
want to
map
test
it,
this
though.
out. Map under 500 and see what type of land and see if there's opportunities.
Map 300 to 700 on the land portal and just see what those type of parcels look like with houses.
Yeah.
And I'd be very curious. I don't know exactly, but I'm almost sure you could come up with something on most of those.
Yeah, you do not want to put yourself in a box here, runs, right? So be flexible with that. Analyze it. Always click view on map after. So put 500 or 300 to 700 road frontage just to see the type you're getting. But generally, you don't want to max in there because the max is the better, but put a minimum of 300 feet or something like that, potentially, if it makes sense. And then you can map them out and look at the properties you're going to be targeting. I don't like to get too precise with this type of stuff. I think you just get your list and kind of rip it. With subdividing on these big, $500,000 properties, that's where we get more precise and go through the list, and we're cold calling and making sure there's ample amount of road frontage on the property and all that stuff. But something like this, you keep the same approach. It is more of a sniper, but I think I don't think you get too deep into your list building.
Yeah, because we're already so niche in what we are. I think you want to be careful with that. Maybe you'll find some strategies.
Wetlands, all that stuff, landlocked,
Yeah, exactly.
like, yes, get rid of all those. But other than that.
Yeah, I agree. I don't have much more to add. I think I'm interested. Whenever we talk about something like this, it's always interesting to see the next 1, 2, 3 months, like who's taking action on something like this, who's trying to implement something like this. So I'm always excited after we talk about something like this.
Absolutely, guys. Well, I'm excited to see your guys' results as well. As always, guys, thank you for joining. We'll see you guys next episode.
Thanks, guys.
As always, thank you for joining. Please do us a huge favor and like and subscribe our YouTube channel and share this with a friend. It really means the world to Ron and I, but more importantly, it could help change the life of someone else. Thanks for joining, and we'll see you next episode.